maybe when the person asking about assignments, talking about the assignments that are yet to do. Because there's 3 assignments and you've done 1. So let's look at the next assignment and see if there's some input that we can get that will help us to sort of complete that assignment. So yeah, this one's due soon. And what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to create a ticket. All right, now for any instruction on that, now I had a lot of students asking me to sort of give them admin rights so that they could go ahead and create customers and then customer users so they could create a ticket. If you find yourself in a situation where you don't have admin rights and you can't do that, I mean, one thing you could do is you could ask me, I could give you the admin rights. But the other thing that you could do is you could create a ticket based on a customer that already exists. And so if you look in your SIT and you logged into it and you needed to create this ticket, when you went to the tickets menu and you wanted to create a new ticket, what you could find is if you're not sure, okay, so first start off with the customer user. If you have some idea of some customer user and you're not sure what they are, maybe you could find them by going in the admin. Probably you need to have admin rights for this. So I'm not sure. I have admin rights. Yeah, I will add you, Ahmad. But there is a menu here for customers, customer users and customers. Let's see, customer users. Here we go. And so if we can look at any of these customer users, so I can see, and then we notice their user name, then we can use that in a ticket. So any of these could be used in a ticket. So if you just remember one, so there's one there, I like that 2 million or whatever. So if I want to make a ticket, I can easily use that. The new phone ticket, I can just enter in the number of that person, and there I am, I'm ready to start that ticket. And then you must choose a queue, and I recommend you choose this queue. You've all got access to that queue, and then away you go with creating your ticket. So I hope that will help you to sort of do that part of the and it actually says choose that queue. And it actually says you can use Salsa Al-Qasimi. So to get Salsa Al-Qasimi, as I just showed you, just start typing 2 million, and that'll give you Salsa Al-Qasimi, and then you can go ahead. By the way, I think there is a person actually named Salsa Al-Qasimi. Wow, why did I do that? And so then you're going to put a screenshot in there, and yeah. Then you're going to answer these other questions. Now, this one here, you have to do an audio. You've already done an audio, so everybody knows how to do an audio. So just some sort of hints on this. I think we did talk about this, but the cold transfer, that's going to be where all you do is you say, okay, you take the person's name and you transfer them to the person that they asked for, just by saying this is so and so. They asked to talk to your phone. With the warm transfer, you're going to stay on the line for a bit because you've got some information to give them about the actual incident or whatever. With the hot transfer, you're going to stay on the line throughout the call. And so that's your assignment 2. You need to do that. So what you're going to produce from that is you're going to produce a ticket in your OTRS. You're going to give me some a screenshot of that ticket that you've actually created it. You need to be the owner of it, and it has to meet those requirements. You should be able to do that. The role play, you're going to create some audio files like you've already done before, and the audio files are going to have these 3 different types of handover on the telephone. So I hope that makes sense. Then the other assignment that you've got, assignment 3, let's have a quick look at that one. It's also there. Oh, this is nice. So this one will be a bit different. The last chapter that we're going to cover, when we finish this chapter, we got 2 chapters left. Last chapter that we're going to cover is this chapter on service level agreements. You'll find that the question basically follows pretty closely the outline from the service level agreement notes. So in other words, all of these points here, A through J, are covered in the notes. But if you do a Google, you'll be able to find out more about service level agreements as well. And you need to do a Google because it asks you to find 3 examples of service level agreements. So you need to sort of do a search and find 3 examples of service level agreements and include those in your answer. And then you have to decide what would be a type of service level agreement that would be suitable for if you're an IT department here at the College of North Atlantic. And then you need to include all of these as parts of that service level agreement. So for each of these headings, you'll enter something that would be in the service agreement. We will do this about service responsibilities. So for example, and you can do this by looking at other service level agreements, but also by you can yeah, I think that's probably the best way to look at other ones to see how they are. But let me just give you an example how I would do this. Responsibilities of service desk. So you'd say, okay, the service desk has these responsibilities. They will answer the call within so many rings. They will get back to you. People, yeah, you know what I mean. The service level agent will create a ticket and will own the ticket until it's closed. All of these things, stuff that we've basically talked about, and you should be able to find out this. You're going to have to do a bit of research. Now, on that, recognizing that that's kind of a new and different thing, you are able to do this in a group of 2. So enjoy that. All right, so I think I'll leave you with that. You may have some other questions about that later, but I'm going to leave you with that there. I think that's kind of enough on that for now. Any question? Sir? Well, it says due date is June 6th. Dropbox, it says June 5th. Well, obviously, you'll choose the latter date. My mistake, so you win. That's how that works. All right. So if there's a contest of dates or then we'll use the latter date. You know, benefit of the doubt, that type of thing. Right. So we were been talking about managing your stress, and so here we have some points about staying physically fit. Now, I don't claim to be so physically fit, but I do try and sort of, and this is not about me anyways, it's about what should be. But speaking from my own experience, yeah, this is a big thing. Now, talking here about the fight or flight reaction, when you are under stress, it's like constantly being in that stage that as if you were walking through the forest and a tiger appeared. So what happens then is you get a big adrenaline rush, but there is a hormone that's released into your body, which is a cortisol, and cortisol has bad effects on your heart and other parts of your body. And so if you're constantly under stress, that could be that you have like a daily deadlines. These type of stressful things, and it could be some of the other things. Remember, we talked about 3 different types of stress. You know, personal stress, you can have situational stress, and you have institutional stresses. Well, imagine you have a lot of stresses from all of those. Then you could be in a situation where you're constantly having these basically these hormones that hurt your heart, etc. And so people do sort of end up having heart attacks and things like that. So what can we do is we got to sort of bring that down and reduce that. One of the things that does that, staying physically fit, obviously that's going to be good for your heart anyways. But aside from the just cardio health, it also can bring that stress down a bit. I think it's really kind of magic that people came across this, and the idea that we all need to have a little bit of a break every week. You know, nobody works sort of 24/7, and I think that's kind of actually works out better that way. All right, so here's some other things that you can do besides exercising. You can eat and drink water and take breaks and use your sense of humor. I don't know if any of you guys ever saw, there was a series of on TV programs. It was during the 70s, but you can probably find it on Google, which was called MASH, which was about these. A MASH is a military hospital in a war zone, and so this was supposed to be about the Korean War, but it was actually about the Vietnam War. But it was about the Korea. Well, anyways, it was set in the Korean War, but it was as a commentary of the Vietnam War. And so these doctors were there, and it was a very bad situation, a lot of stress. But through the things that they had in their hospital, it was just a lot of funny stuff going on all the time, and that's showed how that they actually sort of managed their stress with doing all this funny stuff. All right, so see, there we are. Yeah, exercising, we talked about that. Avoid you. Okay, so the caffeine thing, we do like caffeine, but it can be bad on your body, particularly if it stops you from sleeping. So, I mean, you do need to have sleep. You need at least sort of probably 7 hours at least. There's the odd humans that don't, that can get by on 5 or 6, but most of us need like 7 hours. And so you need to be careful with not using too much coffee, particularly at certain times of the day, I suppose, like in the evening. So that's where this next one comes in, getting a good night's sleep. Now, the ergonomics, there's a mention there about repetitive strain injuries. In the old days, when all the data capture was done by people typing stuff onto their computers, which we don't do nowadays. Nowadays, we can just take our mobile phone and point it at the screen and sort of highlight like a question that came up in a quiz and take a picture of that. You don't even have to type it. We can search some database and find the answer. Wow. So that brings me to another point, which is the next test that we have is going to be a little different. So look forward to that. So yeah, so the repetitive strain injury, people were typing all the time. That's how the banks used to do all their checks and stuff like that. And so the problem occurred that a lot of these people, most of them were women. This is 40 years ago. And so a lot of them were getting these injuries in their hands. And that's a repetitive strain injury from doing the same thing over and over again, this little motions, not having their hands sort of in a comfortable way. They were getting these injuries to their hands. And some of those included the carpal tunnel syndrome. So there was a lot of effort put into trying to reduce those kinds of problems. And so we have all this kind of training. This is, you can see by the screen that's there. This is a very old photo, right? It's like from the 1980s or 70s or 90s or something. Very old photo, but some important points here. If you notice that her back is straight and that her eyes are at about the level of the screen, so she doesn't have to sort of look in a way that sort of causes injury to her neck. And her hands are positioned in a way so that they're also comfortable and she's able to rest. Her feet are on the floor. And so there's basically that straightness works. Now, my own experience with that, I might have mentioned it to you, is I've done quite a lot of touring where I take a car or a motorcycle and ride around somewhere. And I had one holiday where I spent like 7 weeks. That's the good thing about working at a college. We have big holidays. The instructors don't have quite as big a holiday as the students, but we do have a big holiday. And I spent like 7 weeks driving around. And I was getting comfortable in the car, leaning back like that. And I remember I came back and I was doing something with one of my motorcycles, and I was bending over for like 20 minutes. And then I couldn't stand up straight. It just hurt too much. And ever since then, I sit like that, or I try to. So I have in my car, I have the seat up straight. And at work, I have the seat up straight, and I don't get sore back. So that's just me. I mean, you guys are probably young, you're not getting sore back, but one day when you do get a sore back, think back and say, oh, maybe if I sit straight, it won't be so sore. Seems to work for me. Take breaks, use your funny bone, laugh a bit. That's always a good thing. Give yourself some time. So, I mean, from my experience, I like to go and ride motorcycles in the desert. It's like a 6-hour activity. And I always feel good after that for like a few days. So some people play sports, soccer, whatever. Some kind of relaxation. Doesn't have to be outside sports because it's like hot summer now. So what would you do? You don't have to go outside. You could, play chess. I mean, just something that's taking your mind off all of your sort of troubles. Read a nice book. Okay, so setting realistic goals. So the idea here is we're going to have less stress in our life if we're moving forward towards something. And that's where the goals come in. But the goal shouldn't add too much more stress, right? It should be something that's achievable. And then as we work towards achieving that goal, we're going to have these positive emotions. And those positive emotions are going to sort of make our life a bit more meaningful, but they'll also sort of reduce our stress. So all of us have those things, otherwise you wouldn't be here at the college. So you have an immediate goal, which is to pass this course and the other courses that you're doing this semester. And so that's something that's easy for you to measure. You'll see that as you get towards the end. And, yeah. Okay. So there's something that you can do is ergonomically align your workspace. I don't know if you remember, most of you are probably too young, maybe some of you remember, but Microsoft brought out this special keyboard back in around the 2000s, and it was the ergonomic keyboard. And it was sort of, your hands were like that. Instead of being like this, they were like that. And they sort of determined that that would be less injury to your hands. But yeah, definitely, just to adjust the height at least, so that you're not sort of being under strain while you're typing. We're so lucky nowadays. I mean, because none of us are going to be sitting there typing all day long, because you can use all of the sort of applications that you've got. I mean, you can talk to your phone now, right? Instead of typing. And, I've been doing that, and I'm sure you've been doing that too. There's lots of things that we can do to reduce that input strain of working mechanically with our computers. Okay, so I mentioned this when we were looking at the photograph, right? So our eyes should be about even with the top of the screen, and pressing the keys gently, gripping the mouse. Yeah. Okay. Lighting. People get a headache if the lighting is bad. So I mean, if you feel that, if you're working in an office and you're getting a headache from it, well, there's something you have to do about it. I mean, maybe there's adjustment you can make to the lights. So we found those fluorescent lights were particularly bad. But we can put a filter above them. But the other thing that you can do is, if you get that, just get out of the office every once in a while for an hour or so. Sorry, after every hour or so, take 5-minute walk. Could be lots of noise. That you could enjoy that or not. Maybe you'd be part of that noise. It's okay. All right, so the idea here in these next couple of slides is imagining you're working in a service desk, and what do you do to sort of sort of get in with the team. And so we had a whole chapter on teamwork, right? So this relates to that. So what can we do to get up to speed as quickly as we can, making a contribution? So we could do some things like this: a what I need to know list, things that I know that I need to share with my coworkers, keeping my paperwork up to date, logging all incidents, etc. So like for me as a teacher, keeping the paperwork up to date, that reduces my stress. I'm trying to mark all your assignments as they come in, rather than leave it till the end of the semester. That way we have a conversation about it, and yeah, that reduces my stress. There you go. So points here, things that we can measure. Customer satisfaction, we talked about that before, I'm pretty sure. But we can ask our customers through surveys or otherwise how we're doing with that. Now, this beginning of the day checklist, lots of people have all kinds of checklists. Actually, this is a long way from being new. I mean, I don't know if any of you have ever heard of this fellow, but his name was Marcus Aurelius. The reason why you might have heard of him, though you might not have, Marcus Aurelius was a Roman emperor, and he was a Roman emperor about 200 AD. So almost, all right, so 1800 years ago, he was a Roman emperor, and he made a beginning of the day checklist every day, and he kept thoroughly kept a diary every day of all of the things that he used to do. He was quite a guy. Anyways, if you're interested in that, check out Marcus Aurelius. He's like the beginning of the day checklist. This is what I'm going to do today. This is how I'm going to do it. What a guy. Okay. So here's something that you could add to your beginning of the day checklist: greeting coworkers, up-to-date to-do list. To-do list is kind of like that, right? But the beginning of the day checklist is going to have some other things for us specifically, because we got like, well, I'm going to check my email. So for a teacher, it might be, okay, I'll check my emails. I'll check my Dropbox and see what's in there for me to mark. I'll update my PeopleSoft, these kind of things, right? I mean, I'll answer all my emails from my boss, all those kind of things. Could also, so depending on how early you are a riser, you could have a couple of these, right? Because you could have a lot of things that you do before you actually sit down in your office. I certainly do. But so I mean, I'm up 4 o'clock, so I got like 3 hours of stuff I do before I sit down at my office, and that works out good for me. Now, I'm not saying that would work out good for you, because, like, for example, at 9 o'clock, when all your friends want to go out and have fun, I'm already in bed. So that might not work for you. All right, so yeah, keeping the paperwork up to date, that type of things. This is just all about being up to date, right? So what we're talking about here is the incident management system. That's your ticketing system. So the ticketing system is going to give you alerts. You're going to have issues that you have to work with. You're not going to be able to do them all in one day as they come in, and so some of them are going to go over to the next day. And so those things need to be sort of kept on top of, and they could actually be something in your beginning of the day routine, where you sort of check in on those tickets and see which tickets need to be resolved today, that type of thing. Okay, deadlines. So they typically have to do with reports and things like that. People staying up all night to get the report in for the end of the month, that type of thing. Sort of happens in businesses, and we as IT people have to help them with that. But we might also have our own reports, so we have to stay up. What do we do about that? Well, you just have to make the deadline, right? So the best thing to do probably is to see that deadline coming and have some kind of a plan beforehand. So you do certain things in stages so that you don't have to do it all just before the deadline. Another important thing there is about the overcommitting. When people, it could be your boss, they're asking you to sort of do new extra things, you might have to say to them, well, I've got this and this and this and this to do. Which one is more important to you, that I do these things or this new thing that you want me to do? And so if you put it like that, most bosses will be a little bit more understanding, and maybe they might be able to not sort of load you up with things that you can't possibly do. Yeah, so if we have a big task, what's that old saying? I don't know if it's Chinese or maybe it's Arabic. I don't know. The longest journey starts with one step. Might be India. Anyways, it's somewhere in Asia that saying came from, and it's kind of right. I mean, you got a 1,000-mile journey to make. Well, what do? You can't do 1,000 miles now. All right, so you start walking, basically. You break up the problem into smaller bits, one step at a time, and achieve each one, and then go on to the next one. Now, the thing about deadlines, and this was also related to when we were putting priorities on the incidents. So you've already had a bit of an idea on this, but we have this quadrant here where you can see two dimensions. We have a dimension of importance and we have a dimension of urgency. So these things work together for us to determine which things we should do first. Just like they work on the priority in our tickets, they work on the priorities of our individual work and individual lives, I guess you could say. And so urgency has to do with now or never, right? It's like, does this, when does this need to happen? If it needs to happen real soon, then that's urgent. Importance has to do with the impact on how it's going to affect you and other people. So there's some things that are urgent and important. Those are things that we just need to get on right now. There's some things that are not urgent but important, and we do need to do those, but we can do them after we've done the urgent and important things. So some things that would be not urgent but important would be, for example, your planning. You're planning for next month. That's really important that you do that. But okay, you don't have to do that right now. You can wait until you're finished solving this customer issue that's on your plate right now. You're going to do that, and then you'll go and do your planning. Planning is important. You do need to do it, but it's not urgent, right? So on the other hand, we could have some things that are urgent and not important. Well, that could be, a Facebook message or something like that. It's like, or your friend calling you or something like that on the phone, right? That's urgent. But, maybe if they just want to talk about sort of the football, you might think it's, sorry, I don't want to sort of judge that, but another one would be a telemarketer or something. Somebody you don't know and don't care about is calling you on the phone, and it's not to do with your work. That's urgent because you need, if you're going to answer them, you need to answer them now, but it's not important. It's not something that you care about. And so that's down there. You're going to do these other things first. And then we have the not urgent and not important. And that would be like a Facebook post. Or you guys don't use Facebook because you're too young. Instagram or TikTok or something like that. Oh, there's a TikTok post. I need to answer it. It's neither urgent nor important. And so that's the type of thing that you do when you try to unwind, maybe not at work. And so that's how we would rate those. If it's urgent and important, we're going to get right onto that. If it's important but not urgent, we're going to do it sometime this week. If it's neither urgent nor important, we're not even going to do it right. But these other ones will. Delegate means give it to somebody else to do. Now the Pareto Principle, is related to this. Pareto Principle, the idea there is this old saying, and it seems to hold true. It's kind of a rule of life, kind of like Murphy's Law. I don't know if you heard of Murphy's Law. Murphy's Law is if something can go wrong, it will. That's Murphy's Law. It seems to work. Pareto Principle is kind of similar idea, which is that 20% of the effort produces 80% of the result. So that means that 80% of the effort produces the other 20% of the result. So that's why they're sort of inverses of each other. So that's like magic, right? 20% of the effort produces 80% of the result. Another way you could look at it is 20% of the people do 80% of the work. That might explain this terrible thing that we have, which we call sort of where we notice that some people do better than others. Okay, so that's interesting. How can that apply to us personally? All right, so how we can leverage that and make that work for us is we need to identify what is the 20% of effort that I can do that's going to give me my 80% benefit. And so, yeah, there's some ideas about getting organized and working with that help us to do that. Yes, there's some ideas there about companies using less employees to do more things. And of course, you're going to notice this in your work lives because you've got a lot more longer in your work life ahead of you, is that artificial intelligence, all kinds of applications online, on our phones, etc., can replace a lot of the things that people have been doing for a long time. So what is it that is special about us that's going to keep us in demand with our employers? And probably it's going to be something that's more along the lines of our human skills. And this course, I hope, sort of help you with that a bit. There's just some human things that it's very hard to replicate with a computer. Now there's some things that's very easy to replicate with a computer, right? I mean, so it's easy to do mathematics, though that's an awesome skill to have. It's not easy to do theoretical mathematics and come up with new concepts. So we're always going to have mathematicians, don't get me wrong. But to do your regular sort of bookkeeping, and your regular accounting, the need for that is going to be less. And there's just some stuff about stress and self. I know, and I'm not going to say who they are, but I know and it's nobody here that any of you know. So I have to say that people in Australia, I know people that are so very talented, intelligent, well-educated, as in like medical doctors, this type of thing, and yet still suffer huge amount of stress to the point of not being able to go to work, just being very, imagine a medical doctor who has a low self-esteem. This actually happens. So I mean, so I guess I'm saying is the struggle is real. It's something that we sort of need to sort of work on, and everybody is affected by it. It's not just us average people, you know, people that you look at and think, oh, gee, they're kind of amazing. Yeah, a lot of people have struggles that we don't even sort of realize. But I guess in our own thing, we need to sort of focus on how we can sort of keep that stress down on our own. Okay, and so there's about helping each other, clarification, communication is so important, right? I mean, that you have a problem, talk to somebody, right? Talk to your workmate. Don't sort of carry it around. You'll find that if they don't have the answer, maybe just by talking to them, you'll get the answer. In fact, okay, especially if this is with personal problems, there's you may have heard of Sigmund Freud, famous psychoanalyst, but his student was Carl Jung, and Carl Jung, his method of helping people that had problems, that they would come for a therapist, they call them. So these are people that are suffering from emotional pain. Most of his therapy was just letting the people talk. And he would let the people talk, and he wouldn't talk to them too much. And at the end of the session, they would answer their own problems. And so, I mean, communication and the person talking about things, they just by talking to somebody, they actually are able to formulate an answer. So I highly recommend talking. I highly recommend if you have particularly close friends that where you're talking to them goes beyond sort of the superficial, that was a nice football game talk, to things that are a little bit more deep, then you're definitely going to get at the benefit of that type of thing. Look, I've got this problem, this and this and this. The person will listen. You'll often find that you solve your own problem just by talking to them. Yeah, planning is obviously, the lack of planning is a real painful thing. And so if we plan, that's going to be a little bit better. And help desk industry can be stressful. And so you're probably going to need some kind of management plan for that. Are we just about done? I feel like I'm done. So there we go. We got to the chapter summary. Okay, so we did have some issues with that last test, and I sort of alluded to it in this lesson. And so we're probably going to do things a little different in the next test. We've got a test like next week or something. It's going to be on these two chapters, this chapter and the service level agreement. So look out for that being a little bit different. Yeah, so everybody tries to adjust to issues that come up. We've had a little issue and we're adjusting to that. Okay, any questions? I'm gonna, so I don't see anything in the chat. Sir, okay, so we talked about the date. You're good with the date. Let's close the window. Any other questions? Let me just make that list of students. I'm not sure if I got that yet. I may have, but yeah, that was the last class. So there you go. Gotcha. All right, you guys are present. Any other questions? Okay. Good luck with reducing your stress. Maybe you don't even have any. That's awesome. Anyways, good luck with that. And hopefully you also got something on the assignments that will help you. I might still be recording. Probably should stop.